Ryan Miller had never imagined that quitting his job could scare him this much. He was 32 years old, living in a small apartment on the outskirts of Austin, Texas. His life had become so routine that it almost felt numb. Every morning, he woke up at 6:30, made a bland cup of coffee, put on the same uniform, and drove to the warehouse where he had worked for nearly 6 years. His job wasn't terrible, no intense pressure, no difficult boss, but there was nothing about it that made him look forward to the next day. Some days, Ryan stood among hundreds of boxes stacked to the ceiling, his hands moving out of habit, while his mind felt completely empty. At some point, he had stopped thinking about the future, without even realizing it. It wasn't that he hated his job. He just didn't feel alive anymore. One evening, after getting home, Ryan sat down on his old couch. The TV was on, but he wasn't really watching. The room was so quiet he could hear the ticking of the wall clock. Then his phone buzzed. A message from Daniel, an old friend he hadn't spoken to in a long time. "Daniel, do you remember when we said we'd do something crazy someday?" Ryan stared at the screen. A distant memory came back. A time when he had dreams, when he believed he would do something different with his life. He typed something, then deleted it, typed again, and erased it. Finally, he replied, "Ryan, I remember. But I don't think I'm that guy anymore." But in that exact moment, a thought quietly crept into his mind. What if he stopped, just for 30 days? What time are you listening to this story? Where are you right now? There was nothing wrong with Ryan's life, and yet, nothing felt right. Every morning, he woke up on time, but it no longer felt like the start of a new day. It felt more like repeating an old one, over and over again. The sunlight still slipped through his small window, but Ryan rarely noticed. He drank coffee not because he enjoyed it, but because it was part of the routine. On his way to work, he often stopped at the same gas station. The cashier, an older man named Mr. Harris, always greeted him with the exact same line. "Mr. Harris, another day, Ryan?" Ryan would give a small smile and nod. "Ryan, yeah, another day." It sounded simple, but every time he heard it, it felt like a quiet reminder that his life wasn't moving forward. At the warehouse, everything functioned like a machine. Everyone knew exactly what to do. No one asked too many questions. No one shared too much. Ryan worked next to a guy named Kevin. They had been co-workers for nearly 3 years, yet their conversations rarely went beyond small talk. "Kevin, good weekend?" "Ryan, yeah, pretty normal." And that was it. Sometimes Ryan wondered, if he didn't show up one day, would anyone truly notice? During lunch break, he usually sat alone in a quiet corner, opening a simple meal, often just a sandwich he grabbed in the morning. Around him were voices, laughter, conversations. But they all felt distant, like background noise he didn't belong to. There were moments when Ryan looked at the people around him and wondered, why did they seem okay with this life, while he wasn't? It wasn't that he wanted something extraordinary. He just wanted to feel that each day he lived meant something. But that sense of meaning, somewhere along the way, he had lost it. In the evening, back in his small apartment, Ryan would often sit in silence for a long time before doing anything. Not because he was tired, but because he didn't know what came next. There was no major failure in his life, but there was nothing he could truly remember either. And maybe the scariest thing isn't failure. It's living a life that doesn't even feel real to you. There was something Ryan had never told anyone. He wasn't tired of his job. He was tired of feeling like his life was passing by without leaving a trace. His pressure didn't come from deadlines or a difficult boss. It came from small moments, repeated every single day. One morning, while working, Ryan noticed Kevin smiling while talking on the phone. "Kevin, yeah, I'll be there. Don't worry, I got this." There was a sense of certainty in Kevin's voice, something Ryan realized he had lost a long time ago. After the call, Ryan asked, "Ryan, your girlfriend?" Kevin laughed. "Kevin, no, just a side project, trying something outside of work." Ryan nodded, but inside, he felt something strange. Not jealousy, but emptiness. That night, Ryan got home earlier than usual. He opened his laptop, something he rarely used beyond watching videos. He searched for a few things. How to start something new, change life at 30, then he closed it. Not because he didn't understand, but because he didn't believe he could do it. Over the next few days, that feeling kept growing. Ryan began to realize, The problem wasn't his job. It was him, someone who had gotten so used to being safe that he forgot what it felt like to try something new. One evening, he called Daniel, the friend who had texted him earlier. Daniel picked up immediately. "Daniel, I thought you wouldn't call back." Ryan stayed silent for a moment. "Ryan, do you ever feel like you're living the wrong life?" There was a pause. "Daniel, every day." That answer hit Ryan harder than he expected. Daniel continued. "Daniel, I quit my job 2 months ago." Ryan was stunned. "Ryan, what? Why didn't you tell me?" "Daniel, because I knew you wouldn't understand. Or you'd think I was crazy." Ryan exhaled slowly. "Ryan, maybe. I'm starting to understand." There was a long silence. Then Daniel said something Ryan would never forget. "Daniel, Ryan, the problem isn't that you don't have choices. The problem is you've gotten used to not choosing them." That night, Ryan didn't turn on the TV. He didn't scroll his phone. He just sat there, thinking. For the first time in years, he truly asked himself, if I keep living like this, where will I be in 5 years? In 10 years? And the answer scared him, not because it was bad, but because it would be exactly the same. The next morning, Ryan went to work as usual. But something had shifted. Standing in the warehouse, looking around, for the first time, he felt like he didn't belong there anymore. Not because it was a bad place, but because he had changed. During lunch break, he took out his phone and reopened Daniel's message. His fingers paused, then started typing. "Ryan, if I quit, what should I do?" The message was sent. No deleting, no hesitation. It wasn't a big decision, but it was the first time Ryan chose differently. Ryan sent that message, but didn't get a reply right away. And somehow, the waiting was what made him think the most. That entire afternoon, he worked like a machine. But for the first time, he became aware of every movement, every step, every box he lifted. It all felt like part of a loop with no end. He checked the clock more than usual. Time was passing, but he wasn't going anywhere. That evening, just as he got home, his phone lit up. Daniel replied. Just one short line. "Daniel, don't plan it, just stop. 30 days. That's enough to see clearly." Ryan read it over and over again. Just stop. It sounded simple, but to him, it was the hardest thing. What did stopping even mean? Stopping work, stopping income, letting go of the safety he had relied on for years. That night, Ryan barely slept. He lay there staring at the ceiling, his mind filled with questions. What if I fail? What if I don't find anything better? And what if I realize I'm not special at all? But beneath all those fears, another thought appeared. What if I never try? That question was impossible to ignore. The next morning, Ryan arrived at work earlier than usual. The warehouse looked the same. Everything was the same. But he wasn't. He walked into the manager's office, a place he rarely entered. His manager, Mr. Carter, looked up, slightly surprised. "Mr. Carter, everything okay, Ryan?" Ryan stood there for a few seconds. His heart was beating faster than usual. This wasn't a sudden decision. This was a moment he had delayed for years. Ryan took a deep breath. "Ryan, I want to quit." Silence filled the room. Mr. Carter looked at him for a long moment. "Mr. Carter, are you sure? You've been here a long time." Ryan nodded. "Ryan, I know. But I need to stop for a while." Mr. Carter didn't argue. He simply nodded, as if he had seen this coming. As Ryan walked out of the office, he felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Not freedom, but fear. Yet this time, the fear didn't hold him back. It made him feel alive. That afternoon, Ryan packed his things. No big goodbye, no one trying to stop him. Kevin just gave him a pat on the shoulder. "Kevin, good luck." Ryan smiled. "Ryan, thanks." Simple, but enough. As he walked out of the warehouse for the last time, Ryan paused. He looked back at the place where he had spent nearly 6 years. No regret, no longing, just a sense of closure. He took out his phone and texted Daniel. "Ryan, I did it." This time, Daniel replied immediately. "Daniel, good. Now your life actually begins." Ryan stood there in the parking lot, the evening sun shining down. And for the first time in years, he didn't know what tomorrow would look like. But strangely, he wasn't afraid of that anymore. On the first day of not going to work, Ryan woke up at 6:30, just like always. No alarm. No reason. Just a bee. He lay there for a few minutes, staring at the ceiling. And then it hit him he didn't have to go anywhere today. The feeling was both relieving and empty. Ryan walked into the kitchen and made coffee like usual, but this time, he didn't rush. He stood by the window, watching the sunlight fall onto the quiet street below. For the first time in years, he wasn't in a hurry. But at that exact moment, another feeling crept in. What am I supposed to do now? No schedule. No expectations. No pressure. And, strangely, that kind of freedom made him uncomfortable. Day 2, day 3, Ryan still didn't do anything special. He walked around the neighborhood, sat in a small cafe nearby, tried reading but couldn't focus for long. Then he realized something uncomfortable. He didn't know what he liked anymore. Not because he had no passions, but because he had ignored them for too long. On the 5th day, Ryan met Daniel. They sat in a quiet cafe. Ryan looked at him. He didn't look very different, yet something had changed. Calmer. Slower. Like he wasn't chasing anything anymore. Ryan asked, "Ryan, what have you been doing all these months?" Daniel smiled slightly. "Daniel, at first, nothing." Ryan frowned. Daniel continued, "Daniel. Then I started paying attention to small things. I tried things I once thought were pointless, and slowly, I understood myself better." Ryan stayed quiet. Daniel looked at him directly. "Daniel. Ryan, you don't need to find answers right away. You just need to stop long enough to hear yourself." That sentence was simple, but this time, Ryan didn't ignore it. In the following days, Ryan began doing something he had never done before. He started observing. He walked longer. He noticed how the light changed throughout the day. He sat in the park, watching strangers, wondering what kind of lives they were living. One afternoon, Ryan brought a small notebook. He sat down and wrote one sentence. "What did I used to want?" He sat there for a long time, and slowly, small things began to surface. He used to like fixing things. He used to enjoy working with his hands. He once wanted to create something, even if it was small. Those things hadn't disappeared. They were just buried under years of repetition. On day 12, Ryan decided to try. He bought a few simple tools. He started fixing an old table in his apartment. No one asked him to. No one paid him. But while he was doing it, he felt focused. No overthinking. No emptiness. Just the present moment. For the first time in a long time, Ryan felt like his time meant something. It didn't happen in one big moment. There was no dramatic breakthrough, just ordinary days that felt slightly different. The old table he fixed, something that started as a way to pass time, slowly became the thing he cared about most. He took it apart, put it back together, made mistakes, then fixed them. Sometimes he spent hours just trying to perfect a small detail. And strangely, he didn't feel tired. One afternoon, while Ryan was sitting outside his apartment, sanding the table, a neighbor, Mrs. Wilson, stopped by. She looked at the table for a moment, then asked, "Mrs. Wilson, you made this yourself?" Ryan hesitated slightly. "Ryan. Yeah, just trying." She smiled. "Mrs. Wilson, it looks good. Do you think you could help me fix a shelf in my house?" Ryan was surprised. Not because of the request, but because it had been a long time since someone asked him to do something outside of his old job. He nodded. "Ryan, I can try." The next day, Ryan went over to her place. The shelf wasn't badly broken, but it wasn't as simple as he thought either. He worked slowly, carefully, and when he finished, Mrs. Wilson stood there, looking at it for a while. "Mrs. Wilson, thank you, Ryan." Just a simple sentence, but this time, it felt different. Not like polite gratitude, but recognition. That night, Ryan sat in his apartment, looking at the table, thinking about the shelf, and realized something. He didn't need to do something big. He just needed to do something that was truly his. In the following days, things began to shift slowly, but clearly. Another neighbor asked him to fix a door. A friend of Mrs. Wilson asked him to rebuild a small table. Ryan started writing everything down in his notebook. Not big plans, just real, small things. By day 20, Ryan realized he had stopped counting the days. He no longer thought, "How many days left?" He started thinking, "What will I do today?" It was a small difference, but it changed the way he saw his life. One evening, Ryan met Daniel again. Ryan smiled a kind of smile he hadn't seen on himself in a long time. "Ryan, I don't know if I'm successful, but I feel better." Daniel nodded. "Daniel, that's how it starts." Ryan looked down at his hands still covered with a bit of sawdust, and he realized his life might not be perfect, but, for the first time, it was his. 30 days isn't a long time. It's not enough to make someone perfect, not enough to guarantee success, and certainly not enough to solve every problem in life. But for Ryan, those 30 days did something more important than all of that. They made him stop. Before, Ryan believed his life would change when he found a better job, made more money, or got a bigger opportunity. But he was wrong. His life began to change the moment he faced himself. No more running on autopilot. No more avoiding that quiet emptiness. No more waiting for something outside to save him. Ryan didn't become a completely different person after 30 days. He didn't become rich. He didn't become famous. But he understood something he never truly saw before. You don't have to change your whole life in one day. You just need to start with one small decision, one pause, one attempt, one honest moment with yourself. After those 30 days, Ryan didn't go back to his old job. He started doing small work, fixing things, building simple furniture, one step at a time. Not fast, not perfect, but real. And more importantly, he was no longer living like someone waiting for his life to begin, because it already had. Maybe you're like Ryan used to be. Your days aren't bad, but they don't feel meaningful either. If that's the case, maybe the real question isn't, how do I change my life? But, do I have the courage to pause and listen to myself? If this story made you think, try giving yourself a pause even just for a day. You might find that's where everything begins. And if this story resonated with you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. Where are you in your journey right now?